conservative, and proud of it. Call The Mark Levin Show at 877-381-3811.
All right, I can't stand it anymore, so I'm going to do something. Page 176 of Ameritopia. After Alexis De Tocqueville explains the bleak and dark nature of this massive administrative state with all these tentacles and how it destroys individual initiative, I wrote that Tocqueville then made the profound observation, and this is relevant to what's going on right now, this evening, that this dreary existence is accepted by the people, for they go through the motions of electing their guardians. This is me writing. Deluding themselves that they and their fellow citizens remain free, for they participate in self-government. However, as the administrative state grows, the vote is less effective and the individual is increasingly disenfranchised. Tocqueville said, quote, I have always thought that servitude of the regular, quiet, and gentle kind, which I have just described, might be combined more easily than is commonly believed with some of the outward forms of freedom, and that it might even establish itself under the wing of the sovereignty of the people. Now, elaborating on this point, he added, our contemporaries are constantly excited by two conflicting passions. They want to be led, and they wish to remain free. As they cannot destroy either the one or the other of these contrary propensities, they strive to satisfy them both at once. They devise a sole, tutelary, and all-powerful form of government, but elected by the people. They combine the principle of centralization and that of popular sovereignty. This gives them a respite. They console themselves for being in tutelage by the reflection that they have chosen their own guardians. Every man allows himself to be put in leading strings because he sees that it is not a person or a class of persons, but the people at large who hold the end of his chain. By this system, the people shake off their state of dependence just long enough to select their master and then relapse into it again. A great many persons at present day are quite contented with this sort of compromise between administrative despotism and the sovereignty of the people. And they think they've done enough for the protection of individual freedom when they have surrendered it to the power of the nation at large. Now, I go on and it goes on, but that's enough for now. That's what I see. What have we been talking about during this program? The cell phones that the government wants to stop and restrict in the automobile. The outlawing of light bulbs. And we could add in 1,000 other things that the federal government has banned. And yet we see Obama. We see what kind of leader he is. We see the propaganda, the sabotage. You hear callers to this program, perhaps others, talk about how they believe in individual liberty and constitutionalism. Who we're going to vote for, who we're not going to vote for, while at the same time they demand more government, more regulation. Tocqueville's point being because they go to the ballot box, they actually believe they're free because they choose their own guardians. When they're less free, and less and less and less free as time goes on. That's just half a page of Ameritopia. There's so much more that I want to expose you to and relate to you. It's just going to have to wait. Mr. Producer said, you know what's fascinating? Liberty and tyranny seems to have really, by no intentional timing, come out at a time when it was needed, I feel. I think Ameritopia will do the same thing. It'll help explain and clear things up. It can't fix things, but hopefully it'll help change the minds of so many more. We keep voting and voting, and the government gets bigger and bigger and more powerful, regulating more things. You know the line that they use, too big to fail? Well, I want to add to that. In our government with the utopians, it's too big to fail and too small to ignore. In other words, everything's on the table when it comes to utopians. Everything needs to be regulated. We are too stupid to know not to text. And they feel if the federal government pushes the states, if not forces the states, to pass laws against texting, that you'll text less. Seems to me if you're a moron no matter what the government says, right? His point is, we're not qualified, according to the government, to pick the right light bulbs, to know when to text, when not to text. We're not qualified to pick the right shower heads. We're not qualified to pick the automobiles that we want. We're not qualified to buy the right televisions or batteries or what have you. But somehow we're qualified to vote for president and vice president, our senators and our congressmen. In other words, we think we're free because we vote. But we're less and less free. And that, among other things, is one of the grave dangers that Alexis De Tocqueville saw in democracy, including democracy in America. And he also felt that the last holdout for what he feared, this soft tyranny leading to something else, would be America. He felt if there is one place where this type of democratic tyranny could not take hold, it would be America. I'm going well beyond where I should, but I want to explain this. And he felt this because, as the founders did, as a matter of fact, we have so many towns, so many counties, states with sovereignty, that just because dictates would come on from down high, that is, from Washington, doesn't mean they'd be implemented, doesn't mean they'd be executed. Because the American people, he felt, were highly individualistic. They didn't have the same experiences as Europe. They didn't go through all the tyrannies that Europe had gone through. America, in many ways, was a clean slate. And so it would reject, or the American people, a unique people, he felt, would reject this kind of despotism, and yet it would always be hanging over the society. Democracy in America is actually 2 volumes. It's 2 books. 1835 and 1840. He's much more pessimistic in the second volume, and at the end of the second volume, the second book. He's not sure that any democracy, market's a republic, democracy, small d, the overarching understanding, the overarching definition, would include republic. He wasn't really sure if any democracy could survive. I explain this in detail, and I comment on it in detail. That's 1 chapter. And I want you to keep something else in mind. Alexis de Tocqueville was not a contemporary of the Founding Fathers or the framers of the Constitution. He traveled through America. He witnessed things. He observed them. And he wrote about them. Many, many decades after he died, and he died a young man, nobody paid much attention to democracy in America. When he had actually finished the 2 volumes, they were heralded as really great works, but was pretty much ignored for a long period of time, till about 60, 70, 80 years ago. I don't mean ignored by academics. I mean ignored by the people generally, us. But now it's back. Now it's back. I think it's crucial to understand Alexis de Tocqueville. I also think it's crucial to understand other great men of liberty, other great men who our founders relied on to grant us this magnificent heritage. And I think it's also crucial to understand where Obama and Reid and Schumer and the media and all the rest are coming from. Because they're coming from a very different philosophy. It's more than liberal and statism. It's more than that. It's more encompassing and comprehensive than that. And it's more dangerous than that. Because while their philosophy of utopianism has slaughtered more people and destroyed more societies than any other in its different forms, whether it be communism or fascism and so forth, perversely, it has enormous appeal to people. Class warfare. Stick it to the rich. Regulate risk out of the economy. We need a Department of Education to promote education. And on and on and on. Has enormous appeal to people. While it destroys their wealth, destroys their property rights, and ultimately destroys them. All right, enough said. Ameritopia. We'll talk much more length about it after the holidays.